We're live. Well, Sharon, thank you very much for joining. Welcome to Secure Insights with NDK Cyber. So I would do you an introduction, but I'll butcher it. I won't do it justice. Are you okay to give a brief overview of your background and experience?
Yeah, absolutely, James, and thanks for having me. So I've been in the cyber business for about 25 years. Like other Israeli tech founders, I spent the first chapter of my career in a nation state military intelligence unit, doing a variety of intelligence, cybersecurity operation roles. I did that for about 2 decades in some elite units. Um, it was a very insightful, intensive, and really uplifting experience. It was absolutely tough, but when you're facing some of the most advanced and sophisticated threat actors, both in the kinetic and cyber kinetic realms, you have to be at your best. So I did that for about 2 decades. I retired from the military. I spent some time in the academia. I taught in the Israeli Institute of Technology and at the Hebrew University in CISO courses, training the next generation of CISOs. And I did a business development and marketing leadership position in the aerospace and defense sector. But it wasn't long before my former commander in the military gave me a call and said, "Look, I started a new incident response company that is working mainly with Fortune 500 companies. I want you to come on board." I said yes. Admittedly, I didn't have too many qualms, too many deliberations, and I joined the company. The company is Signia, which is I think Israel's foremost cybersecurity consulting and incident response firm. Helped out a lot of CISOs, Global 2000 companies, mainly in the US, Europe, and Australia. We met many of these security teams in their darkest hour when they were breached by very sophisticated threat actors. This was the heyday of ransomware attacks, and double extortion, and we did the full suite of support, from the triage all the way to managing the crisis and negotiating with the threat actors. And also the more proactive security supports, which were very technical and offensive in nature. So it's think red teaming, purple teaming. So it's not just doing a governance focused audit, but very practical exercises. Basically, attacking the biggest corporations in the world, and almost always we were able to capture the flag. So that's a bit about my background before Tonic.
Awesome. And yes, I know the Signia Red Team have a real reputation for proper red teaming work, as opposed to, like you say, sort of the checkbox type exercise. So fast forward to the time through Signia then, what led you to coming up with this whole Tonic idea? How did this kind of come to be?
Yeah, so the idea came from two main sources. One, I was a CISO in my past, and so I've experienced firsthand the pain that what we're solving in Signia. My partners as well have faced it. We were all practitioners for most of our careers, and this is where we come from. Okay, we were cybersecurity professionals, operators, practitioners, and so this is one source. The other source is from those incident response and consulting engagements. Understanding the pain through our customers. And when you do these kind of engagements, you're at a very advantageous position. It's a great vantage point to see that gap between the needs, the pain, the threat actors, and the existing technologies. And from that, we saw two specific, I would say, aha moments. One was, as we did more and more incident response, we understood, me and David, my partner, who also worked at Signia. He was responsible there for the enterprise security, the red teaming, and the remediation and recovery incidents. So, he was also very much on the front lines as well. And we understood that almost all of those incidents that we did the post-mortem analysis, the forensic investigation, they started with a vulnerability or another type of exposure that was detected. The company knew about it. It wasn't a blind spot. It wasn't, a 0 day. It, didn't come out of the blue. It was picked up by the scanners in over 80% of the cases. But yet it was exploited by the threat actor, and they got in before the defenders could do something about it. Why was this the case? Because the defenders, the company, did not understand the significance of this vulnerability, of this finding. What does it mean in the context of this specific company? Could it be cascaded with other vulnerabilities in an attack path that would get the threat actors to the crown jewels? Is this a vulnerability that pertains to a critical asset in the organization? And if it's impacted, it would have a disaster potential impact. Now, all of these questions that I asked, they were not able to immediately understand that unless they did a manual investigation of this specific vulnerability. And this is not an easy task when these organizations, they face millions of findings on a daily basis.
Wow.
And it's not an exaggeration. Million finding that's an average amount. That's like for a medium-sized business. For the large enterprises, it's dozens of millions. So it's no small wonder why often these vulnerabilities, even though they are known, they're detected, they're drowning in the noise, because in most organizations, they're able to prioritize them based on generic security scores. It's a very, very low common denominator, and very often it's misleading. And we were very frustrated that this is the case. Obviously, it was good for the business, but for humanity, it wasn't a good thing. So this was one aha moment. The other aha moment was, as we were doing the red teamings, the assessment, helping organizations do gap analysis, build their resilience. We were getting more and more pushback from the CISOs that were telling us, look, I don't have bandwidth for more issues, more findings, more gaps. I'm up to here with my what I can do. I'm at capacity. Even if you tell us more things that I'm wrong, I probably won't be able to take care of them in the next year.
Wow.
Some even told us, look, we'll pay you if you tell us what not to do. And so that kind of revenue stream of those a point in time assessment, it was going down. And that's when we understood we have to build Tonic. The Tonic can solve this problem. It can help security teams focus really on what matters in their specific context. And once we've narrowed down that scope, help them get things fixed in the most efficient manner possible, ensuring collaboration, automation between all the different stakeholders.
Wow. It sounds like there's a huge focus and problem around that space of not just the noise, but then what you prioritize within that noise. And that's that piece you mentioned there about CISOs were asking you, like, tell me what not to focus on because I just can't deal with anything else. Or if you do put anything else on my plate, I can't get to it for another year. It that seems insane. It seems bonkers. I mean, like, the more tooling we have is great, I know, to help identify, but yeah, the noise coming out the back of that, which I guess is where the whole tonic piece fits in here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and look, it's a similar predicament to the world of intelligence. I was a cyber professional, but I also was an intelligence officer, um, and when looking back at intelligence failures around the world, and we can think of some recent ones also. In almost all the cases, again, it wasn't the result of lack of data, of lack of information. When after every big intelligence failure, there is usually a committee that investigates, comes up with a report. They almost always find pretty strong signals that something bad was going to happen. But again, it got drowned in the noise, in other information that was misleading or that people held to a higher degree or a higher account. And often the remediation strategies for this kind of problem, which was very intuitive, failed. So we didn't have enough signals. We didn't have enough, very clear indications that, something bad was going to happen. Again, whether it's a kinetic attack or a cyber attack, let's increase our visibility. Let's increase the collection of information. Let's, put more sensors out there. But that fails. Why does it fail? Because the more information that you have, the more noise that you have, the harder it is to discern the signals. And again, this is the same kind of predicament that security teams are facing today in the cybersecurity world. The attack surface is all the time expanding. There's more and more areas that you need to defend. It's going to be identities, LLMs. Tomorrow it's going to be another thing. You gotta put sensors there. I'm not saying you need to be blind. You need to have visibility, but it means you have much more information, and it's coming from many different sources. You don't have one unified view of all of that. And so it's hard to prioritize. And it's also very taxing on the security analysts. They need to pivot from tool to tool to tool to tool in order to understand, prioritize, investigate, remediate, and makes it harder to make sure that you're focusing on the right thing. They end up spending most of their time on the false positives, things that they from the sensor it came as a critical vulnerability, but it's really a disguise, because when you look at it, it's not actually exploitable, and it's on an asset that is really well protected, and it's an asset that doesn't power a critical business process, not critical at all. And so this is currently the situation that we're seeing among many security teams. They're overloaded by millions of findings. They deal with dozens of disparate tools. The more the attack surface expands, the more devices are connected, and the more sophisticated the threat actors become. They're also leveraging AI, not just us, the defenders. This asymmetry between the defenders and the attackers is growing, because the attackers are becoming much more efficient. The exploitation time of these vulnerabilities is continuously going down, and it's not giving the defenders a sufficient time to manually investigate and prioritize these vulnerabilities, which is what they've been doing so far.
It does really seem that way. A lot of the conversations we're having are on the same lines. And I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying that they're finding analysts spending 75, 80% of their time working out what is a priority and what should I do about it, rather than, and 20% of the time doing the actual remediation. So, if we can, even work to get that as a 50-50, that seems like the place to go. With that, you touched on it there slightly. The whole AI piece here, has that just exploded the amount of data points we're getting, or has it just kind of been a fairly linear rise?
Um, it is help. Well, the defenders are leveraging AI, and not just the security teams, yeah, but the organization. So it's a broad attack surface that has sprung up in recent years. It's got to be protected. You need to have visibility into that. And yeah, the defenders now have to deal with many more issues, findings, risks in that area. From the offensive side, from the attacker's perspective, it's really enabling them to be much more efficient, to attack with greater velocity and volume, and it's really lowering the bar for the attackers to enter the Premier League of hacking, because it's really a force multiplier for them.
Understood.
Yeah. Now, we are obviously at Tonic leveraging AI in order to fulfill our mission of accelerating prioritization and remediation of all these types of findings. This problem, as you also understood from the way that I kind of described it, it's not a new problem. It's an old problem, but it's exacerbating exponentially. And today, or in recent years, it has finally become solvable. And it's solvable because of Gen AI, because we are able to take all of these findings and tap into the knowledge base of the organization and into the external threat intelligence, the greater wisdom that is out there, and make sure that we automatically contextualize these findings for a specific organization. And that means that they don't need to base their whole exposure management strategy on these generic security scores, which are irrelevant to them. This is the current challenge or the current battlefield. In the past, it was more visibility. Organizations didn't have a sufficient situational awareness. They didn't know where the attackers are coming from, and so we had a lot of focus on detection tools, on scanning tools, and most security teams, they put most of their investment there. Today, the new battleground is prioritization. It's not visibility. Visibility is the previous generation's problem. I think we've to a large extent covered that, mastered that. Prioritization is a new battlefield, and the security teams that won't win in this battlefield will ultimately lose. And the key to smart prioritization is context. And you can't bring context, you can't contextualize assets finding and so on efficiently without leveraging advanced AI technologies and methodologies.
Understood. Yeah, these are clearly the themes that keeps coming up here. It's the prioritization, it's the contextualizing of it. So how would Tonic work to contextualize what is deemed as a threat and what is deemed as not then? Have you got like maybe a real world example of how that would fit in?
Yeah. So let's say there is a new vulnerability that has been published. It's got a CVSS score of 8. Now, security teams, if they want to approach this in an intelligent manner, they just can't go ahead and press the fix button. It just doesn't work anymore.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
so what do they need to do? So they need first to understand what is the meaning, the significance of this vulnerability. So they need to ask themselves, okay, to which assets does this vulnerability pertain? It could be one, it could be many thousands of assets. And this means that they now have several thousands of findings that pertain to this specific vulnerability, this specific CVE. So they need to understand which asset this vulnerability pertains to, which of these assets are critical assets, are crown jewel. They're critical for the business. Which business process does this asset support? Is it a critical business process or not? Who's going to be affected by that? Who's the owner of the asset? Not a trivial things. Many organizations struggle with understanding who is the individual, team, and department that owns the asset, that is responsible for this asset, and also who is the fixer. Because security teams usually do not fix the issues. They tell other people to fix them. Other people, i.e. people that are not in the security team. They could be in the IT operations, infrastructure, the developers. They're the ones that will be doing the fixing. So security teams are in not a very convenient position where they have the responsibility, but not the authority for vulnerability management or exposure management. So they need to understand the business context. Okay, that's is it a crown jewel or not? Which is process to understand the organizational context. Again, that's the owners and the fixers. They need to understand the geographical context. Where this asset, where is it located geographically in the world? They need to understand the temporal time dimension. Is this asset what's the life cycle stage? Is it an end of life, in which case it's more vulnerable? We also want to know all the history. If we want to investigate what are the history of the issues on this asset, what is the function of the asset, and what is the adversarial context of this asset? How easy is it for the threat actor to reach this asset, infiltrate the perimeter, move lateral, escalate privilege, and actually exploit this vulnerability? Taking into account also which security controls exist along this attack path. Because we talked before about the business context. That mainly looks at the potential business impact of an asset if it's compromised. But we also need to look at the likelihood of something bad happening. So if this asset is well protected, and the threat actor can't easily reach it and exploit the vulnerability, then again, that lowers the priorities. It could be a super critical asset, but a very well protected asset and a vulnerability that, as far as we know, is not exploitable. Most of the vulnerabilities are not exploitable. And so that really kind of that's like the process that many security teams need to go through, before they hit that imaginary fix button. Now, there is today really no automated way, aside of using Tonic, of course, to answer these questions. In most cases, it's a slow, frustrating, a manual effort to answer these questions. Again, going from tool to tool, finding the person who may know. Hopefully, he's still in the company, and talk to this person. And then once the security analyst decides that, okay, we need to fix it, it is a high priority, and assuming the threat actor hasn't already exploited the vulnerability, then the analyst has to find the person responsible. Again, it's not part of his team. It's not under the purview of the security analyst. and needs to convince this person that they need to fix it, and that the risk of not fixing the issue is greater than the potential collateral damage of fixing an issue, because sometimes patching this vulnerability could be worse than leaving the risk or unpatching,
Oh
because
wow.
that
Okay.
could have deleterious operational effects. So that's like, a day in the life of a vulnerability management analyst.
That's awesome. I'm just sort of jotting down a few things here, and it sounds like it's a not only are we helping organizations be more secure here, but it's a huge time saver. Or even those points there where your security analyst historically would have had to go to the I don't know the DevOps team and then convince them something's wrong and needs a change. That's it's almost helping on a soft skill level as well, to sort of remove headaches here. I'm just curious. I mean, what are your sort of customers saying around this software so far?
So obviously, this is making their lives much, much easier, and helping them be safer and reduce the risk, and become more efficient. Because what we do, um, we really help them in four main steps or phases. First, we collect all of the information from their tools, the security tools, the IT tools, and we tap into their tribal knowledge, or their institutional knowledge base. That's where we bring the context from. And through our LLM-powered knowledge extraction pipelines, we're able to extract that context from largely unstructured data that resides in collaboration tools like the messaging, the internal wikis, the Confluence, the Notion, ticketing systems, documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, and so on. And we're able to contextualize the different assets and findings. So we give them deeper visibility into their assets. So already they don't have to chase the data, chase the context. We're automatically handing that to them. So that's already making their work much simpler, easier, um, and less frustrating. Then we leverage the context in order to better prioritize. So that reduces those many millions of findings to several dozen, several hundreds that they should focus on today. And looking at the different parameters that we discussed, is this a critical asset? Is this vulnerability exploitable? Is this asset well protected, and so on? And then facilitating the remediation. So, everybody wants to be very efficient at remediation and do it as quickly as possible, reduce the time to remediate. There are all these metrics and KPIs, and everybody wants to show these vanity metrics to show that they're great. But if you are remediating the wrong things, then it doesn't matter if you're very quick in remediating. We need to remediate the right things, and this is what we do in the phase before the remediation, or the action, or the mobilization, and that's the prioritization. And then, once we've narrowed down that scope, then obviously we help the security teams automatically find a fixer. That's the ownership attribution, that's the organizational context. Then initiate the remediation workflow, which could go in different directions. So if this is a vulnerability that needs to be patched, so it's a simpler remediation process. So find the fixer, open a ticket, populate the ticket with all of the context that the fixers need in order to do it, and facilitate that effective communication and collaboration between the security team and the IT operations or IT infrastructure team. And that helps also where soft skills are not always in place or developed. At least, that the fixers have all of the answers to their questions, and that makes things more efficient. There are also cases where it's not straightforward. You can't just deploy a patch because a patch doesn't exist. It's not a patchable vulnerability. Or a patch exists, but it's not advisable because, again, if you deploy the patch on an operational system, it might cause disruption, erratic behavior. You don't want to take that chance. And then you need to either accept the risk, say, okay, no, I'm gonna live with the risk because this operational process is critical. Or I'll find a workaround. I'll mitigate the risk, apply compensating controls. And that's something that what could be a compensating control? For example, increase the vigilance or detection over that asset. I'm going to still not fully remediate the issue, but I'm going to have better eyes on the problem and revisit it every a certain period of time. So to be able also to manage these exceptions, or what's called exception handling.
Love that. Okay, cool. And I guess as well, for me, it kind of fits in this camp of there's a lot of chatter in the industry around is AI coming to take our jobs? And one side of the fence is saying yes, it's we should be really cautious, but there's a lot of people saying that it's not coming to take our jobs. It's here to help us do our jobs more efficiently, and this seems to fall directly in that box there, which is great to see. And now Tonic's off to a flying start already. Recently founded, seed funding, customers coming through the door, picking up accolades. What's next? What's on the sort of the roadmap, the vision board?
Yeah, so we wanna expand, we wanna scale. We're working with some very large enterprises, and they're keeping us on the edge of our seats. So we are able to leverage advanced AI technologies and concepts, and yet do so in a manner that keeps the human in the loop. And none of our customers have told us, you know what, do it autonomously. Um, I don't think we're there yet. We definitely have agentic AI in the product, and we're doubling down on that, so that we can automate more things and we can bring more value. And also so that we can be ready when the industry is more ripe for greater autonomy. I don't think we're there yet, but as a community, as an industry, to relinquish that control and to fully trust software and AI to, for example, autonomously remediate or patch vulnerabilities. But we're going to get there. It's not a question of if and when, and I don't think that it's far out. And
When you say it's not far out, is it a year? Is that too close or maybe less?
yeah, I think it's between a year and a few years,
Wow.
and it also depends on the type of verticals, industries. There are some that are more they more embrace new technologies, and they have a lower risk tolerance, and they have to up their game against the defenders, and so they are more conducive to agentic workflows, for example, and others that are more conservative. So we do see different approaches from different industries.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the sort of the cloud migration going back sort of 10 years ago or so, when
Yeah.
certain industries took up the cloud very, very quickly and were very adaptive, and some said never are we doing the cloud, and then we're all kind of here or thereabouts already. But it seems really cool, seems really exciting. What a time to be part of the journey. So yeah, we've darted around there. So thank you for fielding all my questions. I really appreciate it. And of course, all the insights into where Tonic are at and what you guys are doing. So very excited to share the episode, and let's speak again soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you and for this conversation.
Thanks, Sharon. Take care now. Bye-bye.